already been introduced, and just a brief about myself. I've been with Adobe for last 8.5 years, based out of the Lehigh office in Utah, US, and I have took over I/O events briefly 2 years back. I was here last year as well, talking about our experience of Adobe in the open source community. We know we've been doing a really bad job from an organization perspective on the open source world, and quickly wanted to start with a brief video where we'll be talking more towards the digital experiences in Adobe I/O, what it is. By the end of the session today, you'll be able to know what Adobe I/O is, what are Adobe's contributions, and how we are looking towards our developer community, as well as a little more on how we're working towards open source.
We make people happy, whether it's a little kid coming to their first game or seasoned folks that have been coming for years. The smiles on their faces when big plays happen, when the act first gets on stage for concerts, that moment is what we live for. And that experience is powered by Adobe and Microsoft. We selected Microsoft because there's no other place where we can go find an enterprise-capable platform to do so many different things. They provide the data warehouse, the Azure cloud, and the Power BI platform that visualizes all of this data that's really mission critical for us. Microsoft and Adobe are the backbone to our customer journey.
It was a no-brainer, the fact that they already had readily available integrations with our existing Microsoft technologies. It was a cinch to really bring it in and be able to move the data from both platforms.
We've got a lot of digital properties. We have Heat.com, AAArena.com, MiamiHeatStore.com, the award-winning Miami Heat mobile app, and we want to know what our users are doing across all these different digital properties.
We use the Microsoft Azure cloud to collect and enrich our data so that we can provide it to the rest of the business in a seamless and an automated way.
First, we are scoring every lead that comes into this building, whether it's from mobile ticketing data that we capture, Wi-Fi data that we capture from Adobe Analytics or Campaign, and say, hey, this person would have a high propensity to buy a season ticket, or this person would be a great fit for a retail store buyer.
This data is moved into Microsoft Dynamics so that our reps can ensure that we are on track to drive those leads through the funnel to where we convert them into new customers.
And that's why we selected Dynamics 365 to enable our salespeople to better sell. After we implemented the data warehouse and Dynamics 365, we had a 30% year-over-year increase in our season ticket sales, with essentially the same team on the floor.
All of this information is made available through Power BI so that we can measure our performance, and it's accessible by our ownership, our executive leadership, right down to the guest services rep who's working at the arena events.
Our vision here is we just want to understand our fan. Understanding the fan provides for a great customer experience, but it's also great for our business as well. We now make data-driven decisions rather than focusing on assumptions or the way things used to be done. This has transformed the way we do business.
So this was a video about one of our customers, Miami Heat, how they actually use Adobe I/O and Microsoft together to deliver experiences, touch different data points and touch points for the customers, and how this whole experience has actually, monetized their business and also made personalized experiences for the customer. Now, as we work towards 2020 and coming future generations where we almost have voice assistants and, devices becoming more smarter, be it us giving a command of telling them to wish us good morning, from the time to, telling Siri or your Google Home to give us directions or book a flight or book a cab for us. From these experiences, the, innovation is moving ahead, and each one of you does have or touch the technology in a different data point today or in a different touch point. For this is actually a challenge to the customers and all the industries you work across, whichever industry you come through, be it an IT industry, be it hospitality, be it, maybe another hospital industry as well. All of these, I, as an individual, would want to, use my mobile or my tab or my laptop, be on my convenience and my positioning, on this geographical unit where I would want to create an experience or get a touch point to a particular experience in a certain manner. Since experiences matter a lot, and we've talked about all this, different touch points, we also see a lot of data flowing in. And when we talk about data, it's like with all the new BIs, all the new, data lakes and all the data, sources that are getting into the community or the system, there's a lot of data that's flowing in everywhere, and there's a lot of content. And the content, all the content and the data has to be stitched together to build a very, very impressive experience. Because right now, the customer experience or the customer industry, where it's more about getting in touch points where you kind of personalize it for each and every individual. For example, if you go to McDonald's or any other, if you check into a hotel now, you see your name flashing in, welcome checking in to this particular room, or thank you for your order, and it personalizes your name. And that's the kind of experience that has to come across all the industries. And now, with all the challenge of bringing these personalized experiences comes the challenge of content, data, and all the resources who are going to build it. The technologies are increasing. There's changing digital technology every month. And it's a very, very hard thing to keep up with all of it. What we do is we're actually providing you a platform where whether you are a developer, an integrator, a marketing person, or also an application manager, you'll be able to just create integrations using Adobe products, using this developer services, which we're going to talk about is what Adobe I/O is all. We talked about stitching content and data and the touch points. We also touched about how it's important to get fast and almost near real-time experiences. And in the Adobe I/O portfolio, we do provide these services by the name of I/O events and I/O runtime. So runtime is like a serverless deployment on the cloud where we'll manage everything for you. All you need to do is, and since it's open source, it's based on Apache OpenWhisk. It's as easy to just get into Access and deploy a function, and we maintain it for you. You do not have to worry about the architecture. You do not have to worry about how you have to get the resources in, the cost, the scalability. Everything takes care of it. And then again, it's about the near real-time experiences where we talk about I/O events. I'm going to deep down a little more about I/O events in the upcoming slides. Now, why are we doing this? Why are we providing these Adobe I/O services? We term those as developer services, and the reason we're providing these developer services is for all our customers across the organizations to realize the full value of the Adobe products they are using. If you're using a Photoshop, whether you are using a Lightroom, be it a PDF viewer, which we almost use and we really don't know it's an Adobe product which we're using. There are enterprise products like Experience Manager, which is a CMS or Adobe Analytics. And we want to provide the capability to all the community out there not to write code. We just really want to make it very simple for any third-party developer or integrator, be it picking up a small app like Slack, or be it picking up a small IFTT app to actually come and integrate with Adobe products and make it a different experience or a flow. Now, when we talk about the developer community, we have been thinking about extensibility. Extensibility of providing kind of a service to our community, our Adobe product users to kind of build, integrate, and develop on top of whatever is existing, right? And for this, we have an API gateway, which is available. So any of the Adobe products you have access to and you want to build on top of it, you would need access to all those APIs. Earlier, it was a very, very challenging question, both to the internal teams and the external users, to understand how to access the APIs. And this is what Gateway does. Gateway is going to be a one-stop shop where you can access any of the Adobe API. where you really do not have to worry about making a call or kind of integrating it into your product. We'll already have everything in place, your authentication mechanisms, all your privacy, all the GDPR and everything compliance related. So you can just, you can subscribe to the Adobe I/O, get access to it, and you'll be able to get access to any of the APIs. Then it's about the I/O events, which is like making kind of a decision in a manner where you're responding to a certain scenario that has happened. And I'm going to be talking about event-driven programming and event-driven application and architectures, which are in the increase nowadays. Then the next one is runtime. Runtime is about serverless deployments, since it's all about moving into the cloud nowadays. So this is what the developer capabilities or services which we provide to our developers in the community. There's this website which is actually the document and the discovery. It's adobe.io or the developer.adobe.com. This is where we have all the APIs documentation, where you can actually try out our APIs and get experiences which are like enriching, and also kind of near real time you can try out the codes, snippets, and see how they would actually function. That's about the website. If you go to adobe.io, you would also see an access to a console, which is called the developer console. That console is actually the shop where you can go and use these services. So it's very easy to get access to that console. You just need to go log into adobe.io and create an Adobe ID, which could be using your Gmail or any other account which you have, and you get access, you get into the console. As soon as you get into the console, we give you an option of the API gateway, where you see all the APIs available, and runtime events, then SDK and CLIs. Sangeetha is going to be talking more about the SDKs and the CLI, and I'll move forward on how we actually talk about the website. So this is the website where we have the developer documentation, all the APIs listed. The console, so besides being your developer's top shop, console also provides you insights. So it's already integrated with analytics internally, Adobe, which gives you details about which integration you've been using more. And also it does provide downloads to SDKs and APIs, as well as some tools that, or applications that Adobe developers have built, and also manages everything on the debugging part. So if you're creating an integration, you do not have to worry about debugging or if things are going wrong. The console will bring up all those details. These are the APIs right now which are available. This might not be the latest, updated list, but we do have all these APIs. And a very interesting one is GDPR. So when we talk about GDPR, briefly, if you all would have heard, the Europe region had this issue of the GDPR compliance, where the organizations have to make their websites, all the public-facing websites, GDPR compliant. This was actually causing a lot of heavy taxes and fees for the organizations to be compliant to GDPR, and those who were not had actually staff up resources and get this done. What Adobe did was we made this GDPR API events for our products and made it available to the customers and also the enterprise developers who are actually going to implement this. And it was just subscribing this event which made their websites or get them out of this GDPR compliance problem. So it cut down on all the development resources, also on all these issues of resourcing, and also figuring it out how it would integrate or get into their website code or the custom code they would have. Now, well, I'll talk about event-driven architecture a little bit, because I want to pave a path for I/O events and want to make sure we all connect that ways. So event-driven architecture is more about giving a command. For example, if you have a Google Home or Alexa, and you tell them, what's the day today, and they respond back. It's like sending them a command and they're giving you a response, which is you give one event and they respond back as in another event. At the same time, there's also a scenario where you would go and talk about when you're talking maybe to some individual in your team who's new and who has newly onboarded, right? And you're trying to give them to probably a first task that has to be assigned. You have to tell them how to log in. You have to get the credentials done. You have to tell them the system. That's more of a command-driven thing where you have to think about more processing details and get into more detailed, thinking of enabling the resources based on the event-driven. So event-driven is something just, like giving a particular question or a command and then getting a response without thinking about more processing details and a deeper down into implementations. What is the value of event-driven? We all know about the monolith and the microservices. The reason we, kind of get into the event-driven models is because it's more scalable and it's easier to maintain, I would say, in two simple words or a layman language. It's, besides all of this, it's also about, not worrying to every time get some updates from somewhere or kind of, making more deployments. And if you have some functions running serverlessly, how these serverlessly, running functions would integrate or talk to each other. It's using I/O events. What I/O events provide is, right now, on Adobe, we are like more than, I think, 40 plus products which are already, using I/O events with enterprise use cases as well as some other customers one-to-one and maybe into developers single way as well. Be it a single use case of you, kind of integrating with any particular app, even your custom app, and sending it events for people to take action on. Be it a simple use case of that, or be it an enterprise use case where you have a cart abandonment scenario where you all must have shopped at Amazon.in, and sometimes you just kind of put your stuff which you like into the cart and don't check it out until later. What Adobe I/O kind of brings in and events bring into the picture is when you leave that cart, we do send in events and we do trigger kind of scenarios that goes to the marketer or the business owner, and then from there they can actually take action or define what they really want to do with the products that line. And these, I think, with this simple mechanism, we have had many customers convert the leads back. Many developers who are trying to kind of maybe publicize their app more and monetize it have got more leads to follow up with. And also this has been used in a bank fraud detection. We have a customer who I cannot name here for sure, but they have used this for a bank fraud detection mechanism. And also we also use it for some compliances on the images using the Photoshop for a profanity check. Now what I/O events does. In simple language, for example, when I kind of hit myself, a response is to take my hand back, right? So this was, what I did was an event, and the action was to putting my hand back in response to the event that occurred. Similarly, right now, example would be a very simple Photoshop example. Most of us use editing apps, or we use Instagram, we use Facebook, and all the other social portals available. Now, what happens is there is a time when you have a slower internet connection, and or you want to receive, you really want to see what one of your particular friend is posting, or one of your particular business company or organization is posting. You can actually Facebook does that in a notification manner, and you receive notifications on the phone. You can do a similar thing using I/O events. What I/O events is going to help you do is, for example, I have a scenario where I see whenever the open source India platform or the EFI group is posting something about me, about the session that's going to happen, I want to be notified, which can be done by Facebook as well. However, I want it to be more personalized, and I want to action to that event, which was a response I did to my hand too, right? So in that case, I would just put an event, trigger an event there on Facebook that whenever this happens, you kind of send me a notification that this is finished, that event has occurred, and my post has gone out for a publicizing of the session. And then once it's done, you click on or kind of track how many people kind of touched or used any of those touch points, be it a mobile or tablet or anything else, and clicked on that particular photo or even that link, that post. That's one scenario. And what I'm doing is maybe using all of that, I can also put up an event that would send all these data to a CRM. That's exactly what the Miami Heat case was doing. So if you saw that video, I'm going to talk about it now a little bit. That was a video about some customers. For example, there's a soccer game, right? And people want to sell more tickets. Miami Heat was doing that. They're kind of seeing which customers watch which games, right? Which games they are coming, or which kind of, they have several venues out there, which person goes to which venue. That's the personalization, because the customer industry is going to at that level. And that's the kind of personalization people want to serve to their customers when the world of digital experiences come into play. And IO was in the background there doing all the framework or the bone work services there, I would say, and providing the capabilities of Miami Heat to all the customers to convert it into leads, where they could actually use all that customer data. Because if you see, there's so much data flowing in. I was listening into the session just before, and there's so much of data everywhere, every touch point here. And we really want to see how we make more use, or effective use of that data, and how we get it stitched together to the content, and how we deliver those content. Because it's like the content is everywhere, but what would be more effective, and how do we develop on something that's already present, instead of putting through all details again and setting up a whole infrastructure for this. So events are literally like near real time. It's like it's as quick as me touching my hand and pushing it back. That's the response time we look at, right? We also have runtime, which we talked about of the serverless deployment. Runtime and events work together very flawlessly. So when I talk about is that you might have a lot of other options to deploy your applications or functions in a serverless environment, because these are the times of cloud. But if if there's an option where we already provide IO events with runtime, and all these services are of no charge, I would say there's no cost involved, and we have made it available to all the developers using the Adobe ID. So what we do is, for example, one of you creates a custom app. For example, there's an app that was created for this conference, OSI conference. If there are events they want to send into IO events, they would have done that. And then we would have managed all these server deployments in the cloud for that. And in case there's a change in a session that has to go, or there is a change in a particular function, and they deploy it, and they're supposed to be, whenever there's a change in a particular title or maybe a particular session, just send out a notification to all the members subscribed or attending that. So that's just one use case, but you can think of various many use cases in any of the industry you come from. These are the key-driven features about IO events. Near real-time experiences. Obviously, we are about event-driven architectures. In FY 2020, we are supporting custom events as well. We do support cloud events right now, which is a basic standard. And it's like low code, so you do not have to worry about a lot of coding and keeping up with all the programming languages. Everything's managed. We also integrate with Microsoft. We integrate with Azuqua. We also integrate with many other services, and it's actually up to you. It's our community who's actually giving us those touch points to integrate with other organizations or other apps, or even if it's your custom app. For example, you're building an app in your, I would say, iOS system, and you want to put it on the shopping and store available for Apple and have developers subscribe to it, we can just take care of all those events that would be flowing through those apps, and people can subscribe to your app. Now over to Sangeetha. She'll be talking about what events we support and running deep down into runtime.
Hello everyone, my name is Sangeetha Krishnan and I'm working as part of the Adobe I/O events development team for the last 4 years. Like Kanika said, we support a large number of providers. Providers are basically the source of events. So if you talk about analytics triggers, it's about the trigger events that you have set up. For example, the cart abandonment use case, or whenever you want to know the number of people who have started a new session on your website, you can set up a trigger for that and you can receive messages accordingly. We also have Creative Cloud asset events. So if you're working on a shared project in which one person is uploading a file to the shared cloud and you want to edit those events, so as soon as some tasks like that take place, you'll be notified about that and then you can set up, probably crop that image and publish that image to Facebook or Instagram. We also have AEM events, like you create a page, you publish the page, you unpublish the page. All such events are relayed to you using Adobe I/O events. So I'm going to go deeper into the architecture of our entire system so that you can understand how we have used various open source technologies in order to build and come up with a very scalable architecture. At the source, we have all our providers, as I've mentioned earlier. The Adobe I/O event bus basically fetches these events from these providers and delivers it to the customers using 2 mechanisms. One is when you subscribe using a webhook, wherein events taking place will be pushed to you as and when it happens. And the other option is using the journaling API. Using journaling API, you can fetch events for a particular period of time as a batch, or you can keep polling that particular service to get events as and when it comes. It's up to you how you wish to receive the events using a push method or a pull method. So this is our architecture that we are following. At the source, we have various providers, the internal Adobe Service 1, 2. So each of these providers emit events in various formats. Some of the formats are protobuf, some are in JSON. And even if they have it in JSON format, it is not, all of them do not follow the same pattern. We need to make sure that we parse each and every JSON message that we receive. In order to make it scalable, we need to make sure that we have a common standard among all the services that are publishing to Adobe I/O events. So we have finalized on the XDM format, which is an open source standardization format for event-driven programming. We then have the I/O events ingress adapter. The I/O events ingress adapter fetches these messages from the various services. There are various ways in which we receive. Some of the services expose an endpoint through which we keep polling for the messages. Some of them publish these messages to a messaging bus like Kafka. We then listen to a topic on Kafka, fetch these messages, and do the further processing. The messages that we get are of varied sizes. Some may be of 10 KB, some can be 100 KB, and some can be more. There is a limit on which the number of the size of messages you can publish, and for the purpose of performance. So what we do is we batch these messages together. We store them in S3 or in Azure Blob Storage, and we publish the key, that is the path where these messages are available on that particular storage, to the Kafka messaging bus. So we also leverage Kafka's ability to scale using number of partitions. So once you have a number of partitions, you can scale up or scale down the number of containers so that you can dedicate one container to fetch from each partition, thereby distributing the load among various containers and thereby improving the performance. We then have the service that fetches these messages from the messaging bus. Using the key, it gets the messages from the storage and publishes them to the webhook or journaling endpoints. So here are a few highlights of the system. One thing, it is fault-tolerant system. So we guarantee at least once delivery of the messages. This is primarily because since we are using Kafka as our underlying bus, messages are never really lost. You can always go back and get the messages whenever there is a whenever system fails or some mishap happens. So you can always go back to a particular partition, to a particular offset, refetch those messages, and deliver it to our users. So this way we ensure that we do not lose any messages. Our system is highly scalable. So now there are two types of scalability. One is when you can support a number of publisher of events without making any changes to your code. Because every time a new publisher comes, and if there has to be changes in the code to support that particular event type, it's not going to be very scalable. You're not going to be able to have multiple publishers coming into one single platform, making their events available to end users. So we are scalable in terms of that, since we follow a common event type, which is the XDM event model. Secondly, we are also scalable in terms of the number of messages that can be processed per second. We currently support around 25,000 messages in 1 second. We also support batch delivery versus a single event delivery type. So let's talk open source. So these are the various open source technologies that our service is built upon. Kafka, I have already told about. Docker, all our services are microservices, and we run them in Docker containers, and which is very easy to scale up or scale down depending on the load that we are receiving, depending on the number of topics that we are reading from, or depending upon the number of partitions per topic. We also use Splunk and Datadog as our monitoring services. We have set up alerts on Datadog in case any service goes down, or in case there's a lag in receiving the messages from the Kafka topic. And we also have our own Adobe I/O runtime, which is built on top of Apache OpenWhisk, which allows you to build various functions and deploy them on our servers. We'll talk a little more about Adobe I/O runtime in some time, but I want to bring your focus to cloud events. So cloud events is a standardization format of all messages. So there are a number of messages or number of events that are being emitted from various products, not only within Adobe, but also within other organizations. So cloud events is an initiative where we are trying to standardize the way events can be emitted from these various services, so that it's easy to integrate with them, to read these messages, integrate them into your architecture, and take various actions. So Adobe I/O events allows you to choose if you want to receive the messages in cloud events format or not. So this is an example cloud event that we have done for the GDPR events use case. It has a spec version. It has the type of the event. The various types that we support are job complete, job error, product complete, and product error. These are all related to the GDPR events use case. We have the source from where these events are coming from, the ID. So each event needs to have an ID so that you can identify them uniquely, and the time at which it was emitted. Then you have the data. Under data, you can have the entire payload that you wish to communicate to the other users. This is the XDM-based model that we support internally for all our products, so that we receive the messages in a particular format, and we can consume them easily. This is also available externally on a GitHub webpage. You can go to this website, to this git.com.
Initiative, which we're doing in kind of cooperation with Microsoft and other organizations as well. This is one system that will be used across all the organizations for building their content. If you know about the Experience platform, Adobe's Experience platform, it's about standardizing all the products using same content and data together in a similar format, so that when you go and integrate with another organization app, or even any other system, you do not have to worry about what would be the content in the standard data that would be sourcing in.
Okay, since we are running out of time, Kanika has already told you about Adobe I/O runtime, which is a serverless platform on which you can execute various functions. I'm going to quickly move on to the demo, which we have for you. So this is the Adobe I/O console on which you can listen to various events. We have the client ID, we have the organization ID. You can also retrieve the client secret. These will be later used in deploying your functions in I/O runtime. We then have the events page where you can register your webhook. This is one sample webhook that I've registered. using Adobe I/O runtime. You can select which kind of events you wish to listen to, which are the event codes that you wish to listen to, and you also have the journaling API here in case you wish to poll or you want to retrieve events for a certain given period of time. You then have the JWT payload over here, which will be used in generating the auth when you are running I/O runtime. And these are the services that you need to add in order to enable I/O runtime. So I'm going to quickly go through Adobe I/O runtime. So we are going to be doing a demo wherein we receive an event from AEM. We are basically focusing on an asset update event. We update an asset on AEM. We receive that event. We fetch the path of the asset that was updated, and we publish it to Trello. To give you an overview of what Trello is, it is a board like this where you can have various boards and cards, mainly like a to-do list. So once you have the path to the asset, you can take action and you can revisit that particular asset that has been updated. So OpenWhisk supports a number of actions that you can execute. You can deploy actions, you can create actions, you can list them. I'm going to directly skip to creating an action. There is this command. There's a complete documentation of these commands on some links that we'll be providing. You can have access to all of that. We have created an action called OSI BLR. We'll now go to our integration. I need to refresh this page since I've created another action earlier. Earlier, I had created action OSI BLR 1 and OSI BLR 2. So now we should see a third action, which is OSI BLR. So I'm going to change it to OSI BLR since that's the action we just created. I'm going to subscribe to all the events, and let's save. While that's happening, let me move to the AEM page. So this is an asset that has been updated, but then it's upside down. So I want to correct that. So I'm going to edit. I'm going to edit this. Let me rotate it twice. Now it seems correct. Now I should receive the event on the Trello dashboard. We got the event via Adobe I/O events. We can see that under debug and tracing tab over here that we have received the event. You can also go through OpenWhisk commands where you can see the logs of the various activations, and you can see whether your script has been implemented correctly. And the next action that it took was fetching the path of the asset and publishing that to Trello. We are going to run a small demo of a video demo that shows how Adobe I/O events is being used to publish to Slack. So these are the various resources to our GitHub pages, documentation, Medium, blogs that will explain to you and give you much more information about the various use cases that you can implement, how you can use runtime, use the runtime plugin, use our command line interface to use OpenWhisk actions. And these are some of the use cases that we have currently. Kanika, would you like to explain?
So in case you want to have any questions or you want to get access to Adobe I/O or also build on top of your existing products, feel free to reach out to us through any medium.
Yeah, we have provided a link over here that will be made available to you so that you can provide any feedback that you have, and you can also leave your contacts with us. This is how you can reach out to us. We are available on skrishna@adobe.com and Gera@adobe.com. You can also follow us on our website, on Twitter, and on Medium. Thank you.